Starting with the UK government has been quite positively committed to enable the necessary frameworks to support the market transition to a more commercial and self-sustaining CCUS market. So the ambition here is to capture and store 20 to 30 million tons of CO2 per year by 2030. Alongside this, the UK government has also committed to consider the role of utilization, where CO2 is permanently abated via non-geological storage. However, while policy is progressing quickly on advancing the first CCS projects in 2 industrial clusters in the UK, and I should also mention here the very recent announcement of 22 billion to establish sort of the first 5 CCUS projects in the UK. And while the UK is also progressing to finalize some of the necessary business models that will finance these first projects, utilization is lagging a bit further behind, with no set targets or ambitions on how much CO2 we could actually utilize in the UK. In Europe, on the other hand, the discussion has actually progressed a bit further ahead. So the Net Zero Industry Act encourages innovation and investment into CCU, and there are some incentives being discussed for CO2 stored in products within the EU ETS. The industrial carbon management strategy also says that up to 1/3 of captured CO2 will have to be used by 2040. So those are all very positive developments. I think this generally shows that CCU incentives and pathways can be quite varied and in different stages of development. So alongside CO2 storage in products and building materials, we see that there are a few new utilization pathways that include, for example, the production of synthetic fuels, such as SAF, which will be critical for the aviation industry, the production of chemicals as a low carbon product, and others. These pathways can contribute to important climate benefits, and they can reduce net emissions of selected industrial processes through the utilization of captured CO2. So through all of this, it's pretty clear that CCU can add value to reaching net zero goals. First of all, demand for CCU, and especially for low carbon products, is continually increasing. Second, CCU technologies have the potential for mutual benefits. So on the one hand, for net zero goals, which obviously attracts government and investors to support its development. And on the other hand, CCU technologies can reduce the carbon intensity of industrial processes and provide an opportunity for some smaller and medium-scale industrial facilities to reduce their carbon emissions, and thus promoting a more circular approach to the capture and reuse of CO2 within industrial processes that need CO2 as an input. However, despite these benefits, there still doesn't seem to be a holistic assessment of the value that CCU could add in terms of achieving net zero goals, carbon budgets, etc. So there is further work to be done in this regard from our perspective. So I think another part of your question, Rob, was regarding how does sequestration and utilization compare? I think here it's important to put this into perspective and say that, of course, when it comes to net zero targets, the focus should be on permanent durable sequestration of CO2 through geological storage, and that includes high quality engineered removals to achieve net zero by 2050. However, there is a transitional period where permanent CO2 storage is being deployed as we speak, and while this process is happening, there is much value in investing in utilization. So CCU presents a huge opportunity to deliver investment into CCS as a whole for better value for money. And I think if you take anything away from today's webinar, I think that should be it. CCU technologies that can be deployed now can help basically demonstrate the capture part of the value chain until permanent geological storage and pipeline transport becomes available in the UK and elsewhere. So this can act as a stepping stone, and it can keep the momentum up in getting to gigaton capacity of capture, transport, and storage of CO2. CCU essentially monetizes CO2, and much in the same way as dealing with any type of polluting substance or waste, it can give another life to CO2 through promoting a more sustainable and circular economy approach. So this can then provide valuable revenue for industrial facilities that they can then use to be able to invest in the necessary CCUS infrastructure as a whole. And it allows them to unlock CO2 capture technologies before the transport and storage part of the value chain is available. I think just the final point, there is also immense value for dispersed sites. So the sites that are not located near an industrial cluster and that will be enabled to access the pipeline transport of CO2, I think utilization offers sort of big value for money there as well.